Why do you think so many orthodontists and people in general kind of cringe at the word sales?
Yeah, well, I do too. And I think it's because there's just been a lot of really bad salespeople,
Yeah.
sales professionals. Nobody likes to be sold to, but everybody likes to buy.
hmm
And so we tend to think of that shyster, the used car salesman, but really, I think sales is something entirely different.
That misconception that all of us have had around sales, how can we frame that in a different way to actually help a practice grow?
The truth is, if you boil it down to complete logic and fact, if we can't sell someone, we can't help them,
Mm.
right? Think about it. If they don't sign up for treatment, how are you supposed to help them? You can't. And so, really, you need to fall in love with the word, the concept, and your belief around sales. The root word of sales means to give.
Mm.
What do we give? We give empathy. We give time. We give care. There's a lot of things that we can give: convenience,
hmm
a better price, more affordable, more choice,
Expertise.
So there's all this stuff that we can give, which is value, which determines in terms of how we can communicate that value to the patient, add some urgency, and get some buy-in. That is what determines sales, and is actually really fun to hone in on this skill.
How can not mastering sales actually harm a patient?
They could then leave your practice and go to a competitor down the street. In this case, let's just assume it's someone who wants aligners, and they go to a dentist who just got approved to do aligners from a weekend course.
Mm.
That should terrify almost everyone watching or listening to this video, unless you're the dentist who just took the weekend course, right? So I think that's just one example. And I don't want to knock anyone. There's dentists who do a great job with aligners, but there's dentists who also don't. And I think that most orthodontists think they're the best in their community. Every orthodontist I've talked to, no one's ever said, yeah, I'm the second best, or yeah, I'm kind of fifth, And while that could be true, if your belief is that you offer the best care, you have the best team, you have the best customer service, you should have a moral obligation to win that patient over and start them in treatment as soon as possible.
Let's give some tools for people to use here. Why should we already assume that the patient is pre-sold? How can that help us mentally going in as like a treatment coordinator?
Yeah, well, let me just ask you, do you think that someone would take time off of work? They would pull their kid out of school. They would drive 10 miles. They would realize that they're close to E on their gas tank and have to stop and fuel up. It's over lunch, so now they need to go through the drive-through and Chick-fil-A. Would they do all of that to wind up at your practice for it to be a maybe or we're not ready?
No,
they wouldn't. So it's safe to say that most people come in because they all want to start. And then we start just info dumping, or we start projecting. We're not having a good day. The front desk isn't happy. They didn't get greeted. We didn't offer them water or tell them where the bathrooms were. And so all this stuff starts to happen immediately when they drive into the practice. Is it a good area? Is there clear signage? Did they have a parking spot? Right? So there's all this stuff. We don't think about it. We're just, in the back, why isn't this person, why didn't they get started? It doesn't make any sense. When did we empathize with what's going on and view things from where they're sitting?
So I know there is within the guide on sales talking about 4 pillars. Can you give me just a little taste? I don't want to give everybody everything, just a little taste on how TCs might be able to use that.
Sure. There's 4 commitments that anyone buying anything needs to go through. And so this guide clearly walks you through the 4 commitments and how to present them to every patient and parent in order to get a yes from every single person in the new patient consult.
Well, you're going to have to go check that out to get that. So let's talk about pre-framing. How can we use that as a subtle way to nudge people into starting?
Any objection that you're getting is coming up because you didn't previously cover something. And so an objection most of the time will get in the way of the patient saying yes. So if you can pre-frame and vaccinate against every objection before it comes up, then there is no objection. So saying something as simple on the phones as, hey, our average down payment and monthly is X. Is that what you had in mind to get started with treatment? Just simple things like that where, little Johnny, if everything goes as planned and doc says he's ready to get started, would you have an additional 30 to 40 minutes for Johnny to get braces on Tuesday while you're here? Just simple things like that. Now I've prepared them for a same day start. What if they're not and they're already crunched for time? So when you present the same day start, they're like, oh, well, we don't have another 30 minutes. We got to get out of here. Wouldn't it be nice to know that?
Yeah. So you can plan and there's not frustration because frustration.
There's no friction.
Yeah. Frustration comes from not understanding and not knowing something. Mm-hmm. So doing that where their crocodile brain is not active and they feel calm and ready to go. And let's talk about presenting payments. Mm-hmm. I know, you could get in the weeds. Oh, we got 3 different models. We got small, medium, and large. Why is presenting one type of payment better than that?
Here, mess around with the slider. I just talked to somebody yesterday who removed the slider and their conversion rate went up 10%.
Wow.
Another person, Dr. Curl, was at the mastermind and his case acceptance is up 20%.
Whoa.
And so the reason why is the anatomy of the brain. When there's too many choices, when there's technology involved, there's too much happening in the brain, which it's more so the mammalian brain confuses us and keeps us from taking action. All of this is happening subconsciously. It's not like you consciously think, oh, this is too much information for me.
Yeah.
But your brain is kind of working differently. And so when we can only give one option and say, yeah, here it is. Here's your total treatment cost. You have great insurance, so this comes off, and we're running a special or a promo. So, that's this, which is, it leaves you with this responsible payment. You can take care of it however you like. This is your down payment, and this is going to be your monthly. How's that sound? Oh, yeah, $300 down and $179 a month. Sure, sounds great. But when it's, I start with $1,500 down, but then it could be $1,200, but then it could be $1,000,
but
then it could be $750, $500, and then we could split that. That's a lot, So why not just present the lowest barrier to entry? And I'll tell you why. Most people say, well, I could collect more upfront, which is better for my business. That is true. What I would say is, do you want to have way less starts? Let's say 30 to 40% less starts, but you're collecting more? Or do you want to have 30 to 40% more starts and collect less today, but the collections over time is going to be 3, 4, 5x, right? And so it's the long game. If you're not in business for the long term, then you're kind of doing it wrong.
Yeah, don't get so fixated on the lead metrics and not focus on the lag metrics.
Right. Now, there are some important things that come into that, which is debt to income. Can I pay my bills? And that should definitely be triaged in everything that I'm talking about and considered very strategically. And what I'm saying is also true.
Let's talk about TCs. We're trying to scale a practice. What traits should a TC have when you're hiring them or training up these traits?
Are they an extrovert? Could they talk to people for 8 hours? Are they easygoing? Or do they have a need to be right? Do they get into the details or are they high level? The guide goes through all this and breaks down the psychographics of someone who is perfect for the TC role. And I would say 7 out of 10 practices get this wrong. Doesn't mean the person in the role is terrible. Doesn't mean that they aren't caring. It just means that you're not starting everyone that you could.
So there you have it, everybody. That is the anatomy of sales. There's way more.
Oh, yeah.
Way more
Way
in
more.
the guide. So make sure, use this as kind of just like a overview, but go through the guide, see where you can optimize your sale process and change your mindset. That's the big part of this, is changing the mindset.